Hope you're all doing well. I don't know how long you followed me for. I don't know how many channels we've jumped through and across to get you to land on this one, but some of you may recall years and years ago, I said this day would come. Much longer before, way before Alex Jones getting sued over the Sandy hoax. It was basically laying out a 10-year plan, kind of what I ultimately thought was going to happen. And towards the end of that, when shit starts to get real, so to speak, let me go ahead and turn the chat on, which I already did. Great. You're going to start seeing things. And one of the first things you'll see is them going after the militia groups. And why? Well, because the militia, they are. What's up, Mitz? Good to see you. Glad you could join. They're one of the last lines of defense between a tyrannical government and an average citizen. They are people that have sworn oaths, many of them. They're veterans, ex-military, law enforcement that many of them didn't like the way it was going and retired early and joined militia groups. Like most of the militia groups consist of that, but one common denominator among all of them is their passion for protecting your freedom and their own. Now, when I covered the first individual that had 18 years, that was pretty upsetting. It was rather insane because it gives you a glimpse on what direction we're heading. But this is the exact thing I was referring to when someone that wasn't even at the Capitol, wasn't even in the state, is charged, convicted, and sentenced to 22 years. It's not because of the atrocities that occurred, that what they had done was just so incredibly horrendous that 22 years seems like a justified sentence. Now, I got a lot of different things to cover in this live stream, but I wanted to start it off with this because this is letting you know it's here. And again, I talked about this forever since I've been on here, and even before that, but what comes next is the conspiracy theorists, the people spreading dangerous misinformation. And we don't have to go any further than look at what's happening between the ADL and Elon Musk's X to know that this is something that they're going to keep pushing. Of course they're going to. The Domestic Terrorism Unit. 3 words that should send chills down your spine. Because you don't just create an agency to tackle things, crimes that are already crimes. You don't give them a new definition unless you have an agenda, unless you already have plans of going after people and giving them a separate label. And the only thing that label does is provide the powers that shouldn't be, the ability to completely strip those people from their constitutional rights. That's what the term means. That's why there's people sitting still in prison cells awaiting their day in court because they're being tried on domestic terrorism. Not all of them, but the ones that are still waiting, they don't have the same rights that you and I do. because of that turn. And now that there's an entire agency that was created in the beginning of 2020 to deal with exactly that, of course it was only a matter of time before we start seeing things like this occur. Alex Jones claims InfoWars host Owen Schroyer was charged for free speech. They're openly telling you that you live in Nazi Germany. Let's go ahead and play the video if we can.
Now, this deals with Owen, and this deals with the rest of the January 6 people, where their lawyers are like, we don't want you to antagonize the system.
Actually, you know what? I got to be careful here and let you guys know that Alex Jones is completely ridiculous. He's a conspiracy theorist. Everything he says is false. What else should I have to say in order to not get a strike for this? But anyway, all I'm doing is covering this for the information of it. I am not promoting him in any way. Matter of fact, if you know where I stand with Alex Jones, it's the opposite anyway. I don't think it's... I think he's letting people know. They want division. They want a civil war. So they want to pick the sides. They want to let them know enough where the people that are paying attention, that happen to fall into that left-right paradigm, but closer to being awake because they're conservative, and even though they're still caught up, they are a little closer as far as believing in, certain things that the media constantly says are conspiracy theories, which is everything, and it's growing, and that's why more and more people are getting pushed to the right, whether they like it or not. What's up, P4? Good to see you. Glad you could join.
We don't want you to sit there and do a bunch of stuff. Let us try to not get them in prison. I'm like, well, I want to defend them. I want to talk about it. Well, it's up to them if they want help or not. And Owen's a smart cookie, but they're trying to put Owen in jail, in prison. They filed last night. He's sentenced next week. He goes to D.C.
Now, this obviously isn't the 22 years. That's the leader of the Proud Boys, and we're going to talk about that as well. But this is the exact same thing. This is somebody that was actually there. This Owen, I mean, I'm sure many of you guys have seen him before. He's been on InfoWars. But he was at the Capitol building, and he used the bullhorn and did some other stuff. But to me, if it's from Alex Jones, it's designed to be used as an example later on when they come cracking down and being like, look, you shouldn't have done this. But that look, you shouldn't have done this is getting more and more ridiculous by the day. It's things that are clearly protected under our Constitution. And we don't need a piece of paper to tell us what we know to be true, that we are human beings and we have rights. If you are not making a victim out of somebody, live and let live.
I didn't cover it, but the Gateway Pundit did. Breaking: D.C. prosecutors seek 120 days in prison for Owen Schroyer for speaking out against stolen election 2020. Speech now a crime. Now that's not just the Gateway Pundit's headline. I have, overhead shot please, right here, the charging document the feds put forward. Here it is. And it says Owen Schroyer needs to go to prison for still saying, and they list August.
Because he should have known better, right? He should have known better. They already spoke to him once, and then he goes out there and he's saying the same stuff. So what? That should put more fire under his ass to say it. Like, absolutely. If Big Brother's going to tell me that I can't say something because it's something that's inconvenient, but it's protected under my rights, I'm going to keep saying it. And that's why I keep creating channels that keep getting taken down. Because the government operates through these corporations now. And if the corporations want to continue getting their handouts, their tax exemptions, their grants, then they got to play ball. And if they're already, it's a revolving door, right? One CEO next to lobbyists. And it just continues round and round they go. I mean, especially with the pharmaceutical companies, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
27th, that in August, Owen still said he thinks the election's stolen, and he called President Biden a pedophile. And they say, so we're asking the judge, because of his speech, to put him in prison from 3 months to a year.
Keep in mind, we're heading into the new wave. And it should be evident by now that it's going to turn insanely chaotic. This is going to be the strongest, the most tyranny that you've seen come from your government ever in your lifetime. And you're going to see it. And I don't know what event ultimately will be the straw that breaks the camel's back as far as the government's concerned, whether it be Joe Biden getting sick from jail and keeling over, and we'll talk about that as well in a little bit here. And then everybody's like, oh, look. And then they have to really push the measures. And then if we say anything at all, because if you remember back in 2020, in 2021, and even 2022, damn near everything you said, it didn't matter what you were saying, was deemed misinformation. Only to later on be openly admitted by the CDC or the NHII or NIH, or the World Health Organization. But they can control the narrative. They don't want you saying anything and them not being able to frame it in whatever way that they see fit that will do the most psychological damage in their fear campaign to the common person. But if they start going after things for speech, and they'll say, well, it's dangerous speech, people can die, it's misinformation, medical misinformation. And it doesn't matter how right you are, if they say you're wrong, then that's what you are. And now that we're setting the precedent of potentially locking people up over their speech, I think we're in for a long winter on many different fronts.
Now, let that sink in. In Australia, they passed a law to break into your social media and pose as you and commit crimes. It says it right in the law. It doesn't sound real, does it?
You know what's interesting, guys? Google did this years ago. I read it, and nothing happened. It was like nobody. Google literally said that they can use your number, send messages as you, and do things under the premise of being you. And I thought, what in the hell are they talking about? But these things are starting to make more sense in the lens of 2023. If weird messages start getting out there and you're like, I didn't say it. Well, you clicked on an agreement to download whatever app years ago. So depending on what that contract said that you clicked, I agree, that might give them 7 years, 10 years, lifetime, who knows? But it was there. I'm not making this up. It's hard to find, but I was glad when we found it. It was I first seen it on a tablet because I always, not always, but I read them things a lot. And usually you got to get past all the BS that because it's really boring in the beginning, but the good stuff comes about 3/4 of the way down. Things that most people have no idea, like your Samsung TV is watching you, and like those, obviously now, but back in the day when that came out, it was that way for a long time, and everybody just accepted before one person finally said, hey, did you guys read this? 2 years later, it's like, oh shit, they're openly admitting they're watching you through your TV, right? And that it caught a little bit of media attention, but not much, of course. But all those things, all those agreements and everything where they say they could do this, and now they're just, Australia's the first, but when under the government tyrannical system that they're creating, it's what's in Australia is going to happen here. What's happening here is going to happen in the UK. What in the UK is Canada, and so on and so forth. All the Western nations.
Human-animal hybrids don't sound real either. This charging document, it's all over the internet, the left calling for his head. literally says dozens of times, he won't shut up. He's not remorseful. He doesn't like Joe Biden. We want him to be in jail. To the judge. They don't want to just censor you, folks. They want to put you in prison. Forgive them, Father.
No, they don't want to put you in prison. They want to put you in camps, re-education facilities, and they will be the judge. Look what's happened to Jordan Peterson. Now, they're making a big show of this, Jordan Peterson and all of that. And again, when you see public figures like this, I personally don't trust it. I view it as they're making an example out of them, right? Like, not really, but for anybody that doesn't know how these things work, they think it's all real. And they're like, wow, Jordan, he's going to. And I'm not saying that those people don't say good things, and they're not correct on a lot of stuff. And that's besides the point. But doing that, whether it's intentional, whether they're playing ball or not, whether they are the rebels that they portray themselves to be, is irrelevant. The fact is, they're doing the same thing to a lot of important people right now, like Jordan Peterson with his re-education, right? He's going to lose his psychological practice, his license to practice if he doesn't re-educate. And whoever is doing the re-education are the ones that ultimately will decide if he has re-educated himself enough, I guess. There's a lot of empty facilities that look an awful lot like internment camps that you can find yourself on Google Earth. They can say conspiracy theory all they want in the media. It's for you to go and look. It's there. I don't know how many, probably at least a dozen throughout the years that I've covered these FEMA camps, these internment centers. And with COVID, right, quarantine zones. And they're creating more. And they're not doing it for nothing. They're not spending that money. They're not staffing it. They're not training them for nothing. And I said during the first couple of waves that all they're doing mainly with those, we're getting these ideas in your head, predictively programming you. So when they actually bring it out and decide to use them, people will be like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about this a couple of years. So the shock isn't so great that people just say, I won't comply. They'll be like, well, yeah, but
they know not what they do. I mean, can you imagine the people that with a straight face live like this? So whether it's Australia or here, it's the same thing. So when you read the Gateway Pundit headline, and it links to the document, it's totally true. They're asking for prison time for a man that did nothing and was there with me trying to stop people going to the Capitol because he still says he thinks the election was stolen. Well, that's his right. Plus, the evidence is there.
That was another thing I was talking about, using Trump. And I don't think, I hope at this point we can see things for what they are. And Trump is not going to save this country. If anything, it's the exact opposite. But they're doing that to him. They're using him as an example, like I just explained. Because one of the charges say that, literally, like one of the charges that he's up against is him denying the election. Now, if he's found guilty on any one of these, especially one like that, that's a precedent that will be highly weaponized by the radical left or the New World Order. I don't like calling them left or liberals that much because it plays into the left-right paradigm. And it's all bullshit. It's what they want us doing. It's what they want us to hate ourselves, the people. So we're too busy bickering and arguing with each other and blaming each other when really It's the people that are hitting us. It's like shaking up a jar of ants. The ants will live peacefully. You could have an ant farm and they'll all be fine. They'll get their resources, they'll do what they want. But a person or something, you go in there and you shake them up, then they're pissed off and they start fighting each other. But it wasn't they who did that. They didn't do that to each other. They didn't shake it up. It was the person who shook. But what do? Well, they're dumb ants. So they fight each other. They kill each other. They'll always just look at the other one right across from them and be like, it's that. This is the reason I'm in pain right now. But it's not. It's from the unseen force that's pulling the strings, that's pushing the levers.
Then they go on and say, and he calls Joe Biden a pedophile. He calls them tyrants. Wow.
Is this sinking in? They're letting you know what's acceptable, what's not. You do not talk about the government. You do not say anything. You cannot be a dissident. You need to be a yes man. You need to go along. You need to obey.
They're openly telling you that you live in Nazi Germany or Soviet Russia.
Let's move on. As to be expected, we're going to start seeing more articles like this. And the intention, of course, far-right violence, a growing threat. Yeah, I think we've been hearing that for a while. Far-right violence. And also keep in mind, when the term violence is used now, remember that the DHS redefined what that means. Violence is now something that can be said that may possibly incite somebody else that reads your post, your comment, watches your video, whatever, if it contains information that may cause them potentially to act out in violent tendencies, then you are guilty of violence. Far-right violence, of course. I know, Pam. I know. That's, that's why I always say share. I really, 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 really mean it when I say that, because that's the only way we're ever going to get, even if it's one person, even if we can drag one person over here, that's a huge success. So hopefully one of those people come over here and hopefully it sinks in, if in case they weren't already well aware. Well, let's see if we can watch the video. I doubt it, but maybe. They don't normally play the YouTube ones. I guess yeah, I didn't think so. Far-right violence, growing threat, yada yada. The Proud Boys played a critical part in carrying out the January 6th attack. But the group is just one part of a trend of increased white supremacist and far-right violence. Is it though? Because other than these psyops and these ridiculous charades that they do, who's dying? Who's being injured? Right? Because I'm well aware of like inner city violence. I'm like the gang stuff, but when it comes to this white supremacy violence and the far right, like, what is it that they're talking about? It doesn't exist to the point that they have to go out and create it, in my opinion. Well, to me, it's not an opinion. It looks pretty evident. But of course, they're going to do that for a reason, right? Because it's the ideology. That ideology is pretty concrete for them. They know these are the people that are standing in the way of completing our New World Order. They believe in sovereignty, they believe in freedom, and they're not just going to say, yes, sir, how high? They're not going to lick the boots. They're going to ask questions. They're going to share information, and that makes them dangerous. That's the reason that they're doing all of this, all of it, is to put those people in centers, re-education centers, FEMA camps, prison cells, what have you. Top U.S. law enforcement official says those extremist movements are the biggest domestic terrorism threat facing the country. According to the media and the government, your best friends, the people that have your wellness, well-being as their top priority. What are they good for? What are they good for? They've sworn oaths to protect the Constitution, as Pam just said, shredded it. They're supposed to be looking out for the people of this country, but instead they're doing everything they can to lock them up. Many quotes, complete books on this from our founding fathers about what to do if this time were to ever arise. And they gave us clear-cut signs, not that, like, if you're paying attention, you need them. Hopefully you can just see them. But we need to remember the names of these people. Even these piece of shit, scumbag, media propagandists that sold their soul, that are willing to put stuff out and screw over their fellow man because they're getting a paycheck for it. But that's on the bottom rung. Then it goes a little higher into the people that are your Adam Schiffs, your Joe Bidens, the puppets that are being controlled by the central bankers and the largest of the corporations. And we need to hold them accountable. Citizens arrest. We need to take back this country. And these are, that makes me a violent extremist. No, I say no violence. But I do believe that these people absolutely need to be held accountable for not only breaking their oath, but doing everything they can in their power to harm the people that they were sworn to protect. When you charge somebody 22 years for something that they weren't even there for his role in the January 6th attack, what, you mean being a leader of a militia group? That's what you mean. Because everything else falls under free speech. You can be upset with the government. You can agree that Joe Biden is a pedophile. I mean, anybody with their head on their shoulders sees an old man constantly sniffing and groping young girls and boys would naturally arrive at that conclusion. But don't you say it, because he's in power. And what does that mean? He's in power. He's a part of the government. Because we, the people, are the power. We are supposed to be the government, really. We just elect representatives to represent us. That's not at all what it is anymore. Now they represent big pharma, big corporations, big oil, all the shit that means absolutely nothing to us. Because what's good for them usually isn't good for us. They want people to be silent. They don't want people speaking out against what they're doing. So we could change the law here. We could change the law there. Oh, And that's even a smaller issue. Like the bigger issue is literally it's the New World Order and them trying to complete it. And us as American citizens, I don't really like the word citizen, but I mean, that's what it is, right? We are the last line of defense. We are the last one standing in this game. And if we bend over, if we put our head in the sand, it's a wrap. Game over. And that's why they're doing everything that they can to stop any type of actual and not coerced and not created revolution, but a legit one. One where it was thought out and properly utilized, where violence doesn't even need to come into the equation. Enrique Tarrio's sentence is the harshest punishment handed down to date for those convicted for the involvement on January 6th. Tarrio led the Proud Boys, a white power group. No, it's not. Tarrio isn't white. A white power group and led by Enrique? No, but we're getting good information here by the mainstream media. We can just read it, digest it, and regurgitate it tomorrow at work to one of your bullshit buddies, and so they can parrot it off. It's all lies, and there's so many people that still read this shit and think like, oh well, okay, that's what. So Tarrio, Enrique, yeah, that's why they left out Enrique on this sentence. Enrique Tarrio led the Proud Boys, a white power group that played a critical part in carrying out the insurrection. The group is just one part of a trend, an increase in white supremacist and far-right violence. Those extremist movements, top U.S. law enforcement officials say, pose the biggest domestic terrorism threat facing the country. To discuss this, I'm joined with Kathleen Blah, Northwestern University, author of Bring the War Home. I'm sure they would love that. The White Power Movement and Paramilitary America. Yeah, that's not a problem. It is for them. Paramilitary, oath keepers, patriot, nationalists, people that have sworn oaths, that actually have integrity and will do what they said they would do and defend it against foreign and domestic. This shit pisses me off to no end. The Heritage Foundation, a long-standing extremist think tank, is working to build a new far-right initiative called Project 2025, a blueprint for MAGA conservatives to dismantle critical checks and balances and undermine democracy. Well, it's a good thing we don't live in a democracy, at least we're not supposed to. A constitutional republic, but they don't use that term anymore, do they? While Heritage is leading the charge, a right-wing network of over 70 extremist groups is backing the project. You're an extremist. I'm an extreme. Everybody that says anything outside of what is coming out of Joe Biden's mouth, because he's just a puppet, and the mainstream media, makes you an extremist. Far right, violent, all those wonderful words slapped on. And lest you forget and put some post out, tweet about it or X about it. I don't know if you thought that through, how it's going to sound after reading it. But anyways, they don't like it. The ADL or the digital or counter digital hate online, countering digital hate online or some shit like that. It's another massive group that's really just hell-bent on eliminating more and more of your rights. And they do it under the guise of like, oh my God, anti-Semitism is just so pervasive and so in your face everywhere you go. And these white supremacists and these neo-Nazis are around every corner and just killing people. But none of it's true. But doesn't matter. There's enough people that believe it that they're able to keep moving forward with it. and will continue to do so unless we stop it. Project 2025 is extremists' newest plan to set fire to our democracy. It would allow far-right groups like Heritage and the Conservative Partnership Institute to implement their dangerous wish list with no regard for everyday Americans. Just disgusting the way they talk. And they do a good job, Mitz, unfortunately, speaking it into existence. Well, that's why we're here. Democracy experts view Project 2025 as an authoritarian attempt to seize power by filling the federal government, including the Department of Justice and the FBI, with unwavering Trump supporters. No, that's not at all what it is. It's not at all what it is. I mean, I don't trust it nonetheless, but it's literally just trying to weed out the people that are tyrants, which would be an excellent thing. I haven't done enough research on Project 2025 to really give you my perspective on it one way or the other. But with anything, I just don't trust things automatically. And as I open up to it and see what it's about, usually that stays the same. But sometimes it's, oh, okay, well, this doesn't seem, Unfortunately, it kind of has to be that way with the many, many layers of deception that they're and creating more every day. It's like a big Truman Show. Let's switch it over to COVID. It's going to be a big one. I'm going to play a video before I get into it. Maybe a couple, but... Oh, before I do that, while we're still on this subject, I thought this was interesting. Make of it.
This isn't a conspiracy theory, but I think I would be put in chains if Biden is elected. And I refuse to apologize for creating the modern world. What are we here for? To stop the steal! Stop the steal! Stop the steal! They're going to weaponize some type of agency against us and put us in jail. Are we semi-violent? I'd say yeah. Violence and self-defense is still violence. But when somebody provokes us and somebody attacks us, we are going to fight back. But to just say that we're people that just say that we're violent or people that think that we're white supremacists, I really don't have anything to say to those people. If he wins and he wins fair and square, we didn't do enough. Republicans just didn't do enough to get the president reelected. We didn't knock on enough doors. We didn't reach out to enough people. We didn't bring more people to vote.
He kind of seems like a plant to me too. I'm sure his 22 years will be spent off in, Bermuda or the Bahamas or something. Come on, pretty baby. The longest one of all, and he wasn't even there. All right, switching over to COVID. know Joe Biden's got COVID.
I think she should be doing really quite well for a number of reasons. One, she's fundamentally a healthy woman. She has been vaccinated, she's been boosted, and she has had a prior infection, as you can recall, Wolf, last summer, which means she has a hybrid immunity, or a good amount of immunity, which didn't prevent her from getting infected, but certainly would go a long way to prevent her from getting severe disease. So although you never can predict, I would imagine very strongly that she should do really quite well. We are seeing a late summer spurt. I don't know if you want to call it a real surge yet, because, you know, we have a very low level of infection. We have a 19% increase over the last couple of weeks in hospitalization. But that's a 19% increase over a very low number. We want to watch it very carefully. I would imagine we're going to see an increase as we get into the fall. The elderly and those with underlying conditions may want to, as the cases increase, to wear a mask when they're in indoor.
Oh yeah, wear a mask because they work. You know what's funny? Maybe we should bring it up. Actually, let's do that because it's important. Not BBC, dumb shit. What type of those masks called? Medical mask says wearing medical. The same ones that they want us to wear for COVID. Keep in mind, if I can find it. There's conditions, smoke. Watch what existing. Limiting spent, wearing a. So, wearing a fit tested NIOSH approved N95 or P100 respirator. And this is for the soot, the smoke, the ashes. And it goes even further than this. There's literally one about face masks that says it does no good. It does no good. CDC, the same people telling you, like Dr. Fauci right now, telling you need to wear a mask, or you should, and they will be mandating them again. Well, guess what? And I've said this a long time ago, back in 2020. I said smoke particulates are far larger than viruses. So if they don't stop smoke particulates, which are tiny, tiny little bits of ash floating around, then they are certainly not going to stop or be effective for a virus. I hope you guys are ready, because this one's going to be like nothing you've seen before dealing with COVID. You're going to see the heaviest hand come down on us. And it's going to be a combination of these are, I promise you this, mark my words. You're going to hear all, not that we didn't already, but it'll be nothing like it is this time, about conspiracy theorists spreading misinformation, which is going to be huge. That's going to cover a lot of different avenues. And they're really going to come cracking down on it and everything dealing with it. That's going to be combined with this other, what I covered earlier on, because don't forget, we're heading into a selection or an election. So the violent extremists, again, conspiracy theorists and misinformation will tie perfectly well in with that as well. But we're also heading into World War III, and they're also continuing to tell us about Russian and China foreign mis and disinformation. All of these things, I got to go back and see if I could find one of these videos. This was so clear to me back then, and it is happening now. Well, not quite yet, but like I said, and the reason for me saying that COVID is a force multiplier is because there's going to be two wars starting. There's going to be the World War III, there's going to be Civil War, and they're going to use COVID to clamp down on freedom and rights long before that. Because if they didn't do that, they would have to start off with martial law, showing their hand, showing their tyrants, and they wouldn't win. People would be like, oh, fuck this. But if it's all because we're just a bunch of bad people spreading mis and disinformation, and they have to do this to protect us against some virus, then they can continue going forward with all of it. And that's exactly what they're going to do. And anybody who steps out of line, it's going to look a lot like Canada and Australia here in the US this year. And then some. On steroids. Speaking of COVID and what surely will come, guys, do you remember a few months back I was talking about why is Moderna producing, because it wasn't getting any mainstream media attention, but I thought it was important that Moderna's turning out vaccines, just creating millions and millions of vaccines. Like, well, clearly only 15% of the population are even getting boosters, and you're creating millions upon millions, like hundreds of millions of vaccines with the contract solely for the purpose of the United States for this specific one that I'm talking about, that we covered anyway. So what's going on here? Why are you creating vaccines for something that nobody's going to get? It's just going to be a waste, right? Well, no, obviously not. They're ahead of the game. Not that the variant was out yet. That's not important. They'll tell you, in my opinion, they'll tell you that this could be the variant, and they may already or already not. We are on here on YouTube, and we should treat the truth as such. Already have it. Stocked up, ready to go. Don't worry about the people that, founded Moderna and the technologies and the patents and the people that were funding them. It's kind of a little shady. Bill Gates and the depopulation, all that, and nanotechnology. That's not nor here nor there. We're talking about the government and big pharmaceutical companies. And when doing so, you can know 100% that they're just looking out for you. And they want to make sure that they're doing everything in their power to make sure you sleep well. Sucks coughing all night. Six-month-old baby from Thailand was diagnosed with COVID-19 after suffering a fever and a cough. The infant was prescribed favipiravir, the antiviral treatment approved. Shockingly, about 18 hours after beginning the medication, the mother noticed that her child's brown eyes had turned blue. They looked purple to me, but medical professionals told her to stop the treatment immediately. And within 5 days, the child's cornea returned to brown. You know why? You guys remember when I was talking about optogenetics? That would do that. If your retina starts producing proteins in the color spectrum, remember coincidentally how all during the last wave all these new LED lights were mysteriously going to this violet color? We were covering it then, and I was saying, like, yeah, that's kind of makes sense, because looking into the genome, looking into the technologies, looking into who's funding it and what else they're funding, it kind of made sense that optogenetics is clearly something that they are really concerned about. And I think it's really strange that a child catches COVID and gets treated and then all of a sudden has their eyes changed to purple. What would do that? What would do that? Oh, it's a side effect. My eyes just changed color. Yes, but why? You got to think of it biologically, like on a cellular level. What is happening to cause that to happen? And there's not too many. Well, maybe Common Doc can throw some stuff in there. I mean, I know a thing or two, but it's not my field. My profession, I should say. It is kind of a part of my field, but of study anyway. I love reading garbage like this. Did a report really say masks don't help prevent the spread of COVID? Yeah, a bunch of them did. And so did Anthony Fauci. So did the CDC. So did, like, we all realized this, and they were, like, apologizing at one point, being like, oh, shit, we shouldn't have locked down. Now children can't speak right, and they have these impediments, and why were we making them wear masks when they weren't effective? And then all of a sudden, it's like none of that shit happened. We're here we are again, where now they're effective, and now you're going to need to wear them. And even though the vaccines, well, they admit themselves that, yeah, they weren't really as safe and effective as they first touted them to be. But these ones will be. These next ones will be. Biden told you so. He was way ahead of the curve. I mean, really, when all this was coming, when like all these articles were starting to be making their way to your screen, nothing was happening yet. But it was clearly time, right? We're heading in September. We got to get this out there to the public. We got it drilled into the minds, because flu season's coming. People are going to get sick. But you can't have them just getting sick without being scared to shit. You got to terrify them. Tell them that, oh, there's this new super strain that's going to probably kill you unless you go get jabbed again. Because that'll save you. That will save you. For sure. Family searching for answers after healthy 14-year-old boy dies in sleep at grandparents' house. This is completely unrelated, of course. "14-year-old boy with no known prior medical history has died suddenly in his sleep. William Pfeiffer from Queenstown, Alladade, spent his final hours at his grandparents' house last Sunday when he fell asleep and didn't wake up." Yeah, that happens now. That's just a thing. Hopefully you don't play sports. You do a lot of running, especially soccer, because these things are extremely dangerous now. Sleeping can kill you. Probably climate change, right? I'm sure it's something like that. Maybe it's white supremacy. I don't know, but just stay on guard. Gotta never know. And if I had to guess, if I had to put my chips in the pile and bet on something, racism. Definitely racism. Racism killed this boy in his sleep. We're going to see a lot of this type of stuff. And I've been seeing it. That's why all this stuff ties together, guys. That's why I don't feel like... Normally, I would try to keep these videos separate. But some of you may remember me saying that all this stuff is coming together and being tied into one giant behemoth machine that is going to go after everyone and everything that they can if they dissent, if they step out of line, if they don't nod in agreement and try to tell their friends at every opportunity. Big tech fails its biggest disinformation test yet, EU report finds. Big surprise. Will they ever pass one? Would any social media platform ever pass anything? Because they're always going to want more censorship. It's never going to be enough. Somebody is... let's say all the things that they're currently talking about right now were completely eliminated. They're like, yeah, well, you had free speech, so you thought. And now we're just going to say, well, you can't talk about this, that, and the other. Do you think they'd be satisfied? Do you think they're going to be like, well, our job here is done. Literally, our job. That puts me out of a job, so we're fine. I'm cool. I don't have to feed my family. Our job here is done. We have found all of the people that are spreading disinformation. We have found all the conspiracy theorists. We have found everything that we were looking for, and we eliminated it. Case closed. No. Not when they're creating new agencies. Not when they're expanding, like the IRS, 85,000 new agents. Are you kidding me? And it's like that across the board. The government's growing. Population isn't. Even though they're telling us, oh, it's overpopulated. Well, yeah, it's kind of the opposite. People aren't reproducing at a rate that would actually uphold society, and there could possibly be a very catastrophic collapse if it continues this way. But that's not what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you climate change, your problem, your fault. Stop using your stove. Stop using your gas stove. Cut down on your water. Like everything, and it's just going to get more and more and more invasive. Everything is. All of it. And it's not going away. Unless we say enough is enough, and the people that keep pushing this shit and violating our rights are dealt with. Non-violently, of course. I'm going to get wrapping it up, guys. I appreciate all the support I get. I read some really nice comments today. That was really good to read. It made my day seeing that, so I appreciate it. I have more stuff to go over, but there's not enough hours in a day. Hopefully, that's why I say share. Get it out there if we can grow, and I can do like a Patreon or something. I would love to do this full time, and obviously YouTube would hate it, but it is what it is. All right, guys, I hope you all have a great night, great day tomorrow, great week, month, year, decade, century, millennium. Much love. Peace. I'm out.